Right, let's get the very latest transfer news now. You can see our reporter Michael Bridge joins us. Michael, let's start with what looks like a significant departure from Arsenal.
Absolutely significant, Joe. Yes, Fulham are in advanced talks with Arsenal over the signing of Emil Smith-Rowe. The fee under discussion is around £35 million, which would be a record for Fulham. Now, what we know, Smith-Rowe is keen on the move to Craven Cottage, but he's currently with Mikel Arteta's side in America, and he's waiting a final agreement and permission to have a medical and discuss personal terms. Now, he didn't feature against Bournemouth last night, well, in the middle of the night. Fulham and Palace, they've been interested in him. They've had bids rejected. But, yeah, it looks like Fulham are going to win the race. There was interest, I say, from Palace, but Fulham made that bid, and it looks like it's getting closer. Now, this is what Mikel Arteta said on the potential move for Smith-Rowe to Fulham.
And Emil wasn't involved tonight. He's always been linked quite heavily with a move away. Is there any update you can provide us on that?
Yeah, there are things happening in the background at the moment, and we decided the best thing to do was to keep him away from the game today.
So, plenty of us know all about Smith-Rowe. If he does move to Craven Cottage, what kind of player can Fulham expect?
I think a very tenacious one, someone who can move the ball quickly, creativity. This is what Fulham need. They need a creator. Now, if Smith-Rowe stays fit, we know Smith-Rowe has had a few injury concerns, but if he can stay fit, it could be a very exciting signing for Fulham. If we look at here, Joe, the fewest big chances created, Fulham won't like that stat at all. So Marco Silva there, looking a bit serious because he knows he needs a bit more creativity in that 11, and that's what Smith-Rowe will bring. So it's clear, if Smith-Rowe stays fit and this move does happen, Fulham fans should be absolutely delighted. And of course, Marco Silva, I mean, he's always great to speak to at press conferences. He's very honest, and he didn't want to lose João Paulinho, but he did lose him to Bayern Munich. He wants to spend that money, and he'll be spending half of it on Smith-Rowe.
I love the idea that we showed him this graphic and then took that picture. But,
yeah, he was happy with it.
Yeah. The incomings don't look like stopping there for Fulham, though.
No, this is a bit of a one that Fulham fans will like. Ryan Sessegnon close to coming back to Craven Cottage, and that's Ryan Sessegnon there scoring one of many goals he scored for Fulham. He won so many awards when he was in the Championship. He played at left-back, and he was so good at left-back, they put him on the wing. He had a great few years at Fulham, and then he moved to Tottenham, and it didn't really work out for him at Spurs because he had so many injury problems. Spurs released him at the end of the season. He's not had a break. He's been training all summer to try and get himself fully fit. He had a few training sessions at Crystal Palace, but it looks like he will be returning to Craven Cottage. But more on that as we get it. But Fulham looking busy today.
And someone we've already been speaking about over the past few weeks, Ricardo Calafiori. How close are Arsenal to completing that deal then?
Very, very close indeed. And this is a very exciting signing for Arsenal. I know the Arsenal fans are excited. He's rather versatile. He can play left-back as well. I think Arsenal are looking strong at the back as well. This is what Arsenal are getting. They're getting a top-class centre-half, and he's still very young as well. And for the fee we're talking involved as well, you look at other defenders, the other transfer fees, around €50 million. I think Arsenal will be very happy if this goes through. This is very close indeed. So stay with us throughout the evening on Sky Sports News for a potential development on this. Or it might be more news tomorrow, but Arsenal are very close to getting this sorted. As we can see there, as Arsenal fans would like to see it, deal agreed.
Right, bring us up to see what's going on at West Ham, because news of a potential new signing there.
This is big news coming from West Ham. Bayern Munich and West Ham have reached agreement for the transfer of Nasser Mazraoui, according to our colleagues in Germany. Now, the club still have work to do on the financial details, but it is understood there is a verbal agreement between West Ham and the defender. And this is your potential new right-back defender, West Ham United fans. He likes to bomb forward. Now, Manchester United are still interested, we understand from our colleagues in Germany, but West Ham are leading the race. So more on that as we get it, but that's a real developing story for us this afternoon.
OK, another one that's developing, because they could be bringing in a striker as well, a new development in the future of Aston Villa's John Duran.
Yes, indeed. Now, footballers, we know if they're unhappy, they potentially want to leave. What do they do in the modern world? They delete pictures on their social media, they delete what team they play for. So that's happened to John Duran. But he's spoken to ESPN recently regarding rumours of a move to West Ham, and he said, of course, the fact my name sounds in those big teams is very important for my career. I am happy that these rumours are happening, and hopefully something concrete happens. So I'm not sure what Villa fans will make of that. I'm sure West Ham fans will like it. No real developments in terms of the transfer as of yet, but they are direct quotes from him coming from ESPN.
We've got to talk about Arsenal. We've got lots to get through tonight. We must hear from Mikel Arteta on what he has had to say about his squad for this coming season. He said perfection in this league requires different standards to relate that word to winning the Premier League. We know that there are certain positions that we want to improve and give the squad better resources, especially in terms of numbers where we are very short. We are so close. There are moments where we had really fine margins. Well, Frank Leboeuf is joining us now as we delve a little bit deeper into everything that's going on at Arsenal for the season ahead. And given that you are here, Robbo, we'd like to get your thoughts on a few things. First of all, Ricardo Calafiori, if this is to go ahead, yes, what do you think it means for Arsenal?
It means another player that can play at centre-half. It's another player that can play at left-back. Remember, I think Zinchenko has fallen out of favour and could be for sale. Toney has been out on loan for a couple of seasons now and doesn't seem to be in favour either. Kivior hasn't quite been good enough. So Calafiori gives them a lot of options. He's a centre-half, if you saw it at the European Championship, but he's probably going to play at left-back. But he could be a left-back that likes to come in field, like we saw with Zinchenko and Ben White playing that little bit wider on the right-hand side. He's a good player. He's got pace, he's a good defender, and he's also good on the ball. Not so much as an overlapping player, but coming in field and making things happen. So
that's one player, and that's one area that we're talking about here. With regards to what Mikel Arteta has just had to say there and those fine margins, where else do you think they need to strengthen if they are to take the title this season,
you looked at that team there, and remember they had Jesus as the centre-forward, who didn't quite work for them. He started off brilliantly. Havertz does a good job there, but is he an out-and-out centre-forward? When you need crosses into the box, he's quite good in the air. But someone like Ivan Toney could be the answer. He's not going to play every week, maybe. You know, against some of the big teams, they might play Havertz at centre-forward. But I think they need another option at centre-forward. And Ivan Toney would be that sort of option. You know, somebody that can hold up the play, he can win balls in the air, he'd be aggressive when balls come into the box, particularly when they're trailing in games. So that's another area I think he would like to make them better. And I think in midfield, if they want to play Declan Rice slightly higher up the field and be more advanced, then is Jorginho the best player they could have in that holding midfield role, or Thomas Partey? I think that's another area where they could improve, another central midfield player.
You agree that there's a few areas that they could do with strengthening?
I do. I certainly think in midfield alongside Declan Rice, there's a huge need there. And while, yes, you applaud the signing of Calafiori, kind of given the problems that they've had at left-back, you look at Arsenal's defensive record, which was just about as good as it gets. Defence isn't the first thing you think of when you think Arsenal need to improve. But there was a need. It was addressed, and I think addressed very well by Mikel Arteta. But it really does come down to Arsenal's attacking options. And while Havertz at times popped up at key moments and key games with goals, I'm just not sold on Havertz as the striker to lead a team to win the Premier League. And I feel the same about Gabriel Jesus, who I thought started wonderfully well when he first joined Arsenal. But because of injuries, I think it has waned, and it's shown a need there. So there is still that department to be addressed. And Arteta's right. Margins are really thin, especially when you consider how good Manchester City just continue to be. Now, there are questions about them, what business they do this summer, or the charges that they're still facing, what kind of happens as that progresses during the course of the season. But if you take all those as, well, not really your business, we have to be better than what Manchester City showed us to be last season. Yeah, I still think there's a little bit of work to be done, because for as good as Arsenal were, again, you just come up short.
So just before I do go to Frank here, if you are to bring in, say, an Ivan Toney, what actually happens to Havertz? He continues to start and Ivan Toney comes off the bench?
For certain games, maybe so. But if you're buying a centre-forward, and this is where Arteta's got to be slightly brave, he's built an environment where everybody's nice and cosy. He's even talked, we didn't carry that interview on, where he talked about we have to give more love to the players we've got. At some point, he has to be a little bit like Pep Guardiola and say, I don't care how I'm going to upset the players at times. I'm going to bring in 3 or 4 more new players that are going to put these players under pressure. And if they don't play well enough, those players are going to be out of the team maybe for 6 or 7 weeks. That's what Pep Guardiola does, and that's why he's made them champions, as well as being a great coach. That's maybe what Arteta's got to do. He's got to be he can't be frightened of upsetting players. He's got to bring new players in and make the right decisions with those players if certain players aren't playing quite well enough.
But do you think Frank Arteta to be a little bit more ruthless this season if he is to achieve bigger things?
Well, if he wants to bring some strength inside the squad, he will have to. But now it's the question mark would be how the squad would going to respond to him. You have to be legit in order to give orders to the players and to make them accepting your decisions. Guardiola, because of his past, because of his success, has that legitimate positioning. I'm still wondering at which level Arteta is with the players to be accepted as the guy who takes decision. If you take a Toney and you sign him for, I think, around 50 million, do you think he's going to be happy to be just on the bench because he plays for Arsenal, who didn't win anything? Well, the Premier League for some years? No, I think he wants to play. So he might go to another club because he wants to play. And because he's been bought for 50 million, it will be legit to say, well, you know what, you take me to be on the bench. I'm not accepting that decision. So, and also what's going to happen with Jesus if Toney comes or Havertz? He will have to deal with the dressing room. As we talk about the margins and the fine margins, that's also something you have to deal with. When Guardiola doesn't need to deal with that because he's legit. Because what he did before to Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and also Manchester City. Nobody going to contest what he says, where we don't know with Arteta how it's going to work.
Welcome to another video on our channel, the best place to stay updated. Ivan Toney could be preparing to leave Brentford on a free transfer next summer, allowing his contract to expire. The England international has been the subject of speculation over a possible departure from the Bees in recent months, with Arsenal and Manchester United among the clubs interested in his signature. Tottenham Hotspur and West Ham United have also shown interest in the 28-year-old. However, according to TalkSport, Toney is willing to remain at Brentford until the end of his contract in 2025 before leaving as a free agent. Toney has not yet started negotiations to renew his contract with Thomas Frank's team. Although he is eyeing a big-money move next summer, the striker is open to seeing out his current contract to the end. Toney scored 4 goals and provided 2 assists in 17 Premier League matches last season, having missed the first half of the season due to a suspension after admitting more than 200 betting charges. Brentford manager Thomas Frank recently commented on Toney's future at the club. "He's a Brentford player and I'd love for him to stay. That would give me a very positive challenge," the Dane told Sky Sports. "But I don't know a coach who doesn't want as many good players as possible. At the moment, Ivan is a Brentford player. I know he is enjoying some well-deserved time off after his time with the England squad. I would be more than happy if he stayed with us. He's a goal scorer, and that's a great thing to have in your team, so if you want to buy him, it's going to be expensive. Would you like to have Toney on your team? Comment below. Thanks for watching and see you next time."